This is WAWL, Chattanooga State's The Wall, and you're listening to HonkSec Radio. I am your hostess with the mostest, your cyberpunk anarchist Harlete Quinn, and we're doing an interview tonight with the cybersecurity professor here at Chattanooga State Community College, Dr. Patrick Ward. Good evening, Patrick.
Good evening. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you.
Good. So, why don't you talk about a little bit about yourself? How you got started with cybersecurity, teaching here on the college, and what you teach here on campus.
All right. Well, my career started back actually when I was in college. I was in college and I was doing a major in information and computer science, and I was helping out my fellow students do various kinds of things. And when I graduated college, I started as a software developer, moved up to a software engineer, and then I finally changed jobs to be basically a programmer for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. That's the place that does the outer space exploration, the Mars rovers, and things like that. So I worked there for a software developer for a number of years, and then I finally started transitioning into cybersecurity, or what is known as cybersecurity now. Back then, basically, what we were mostly concerned with was the proposals that we were working on, and we were working on proposals for various outer space interplanetary missions, and we wanted to make sure that all of the things that we did were not being intercepted by anybody else and things like that. We also had to deal with foreign nationals because we had various people working on our projects from other countries, because all the things that NASA does are international collaborations, and so we had to make sure that everybody had access to the things that they're supposed to and not supposed to. So I worked there for about 20 years. I came to Chattanooga State in August 2016. I was invited to come here actually because they had just started up a cybersecurity program. They had no idea what to do. And so they said, hey, how would you like to do this? And I said, hey, why not? So I was able to come in the ground floor and actually help build the cybersecurity program here at ChattState. Currently, I'm teaching penetration testing. I'm teaching a class that helps you learn how to be what's called a cyber ops associate. I teach network security both here and at UTC. And I teach a variety of other courses as well, just for the computer science stuff here at ChattState. So that's pretty much how I fell into where I am now. The reason why we ended up moving to Chattanooga from Los Angeles was because of the affordability. I wanted to be a teacher. I was done doing my stint as a cybersecurity professional for 30 years or 20 years or whatever it was, forever it seemed like. And I said, you know what, I just want to teach, but I couldn't really afford to live in LA if I just wanted to teach. So I moved out to Chattanooga to teach. And so here I am.
That is a wonderful story. And what year did you start with the cybersecurity career you had?
Oh, so that was about 2006, I think I started transitioning. So it was about 10 years into the job there that I started moving into the other stuff. So
that's amazing. And with you being in California, did you ever visit Silicon Valley and really check out the tech scene over there?
So I was primarily in Southern California, so I didn't really check out Silicon Valley much other than go to a few conferences up there for various different kinds of open source conferences. So.
Very cool. What are your thoughts on the current trends going on in cybersecurity, such as the current cyber attacks that we are seeing today, especially AI agent vulnerabilities and several other ransomware attacks that have been going on even this past year? I know that we've had like a ransomware as a service attacks that are being conducted by shiny hunters. So I want to also get your thoughts on the current trends at the moment.
So the challenges that we have today is that as the speed of technology increases and AI makes things a lot easier to do, we have the attackers using that same technology to make their lives easier. And so this is really kind of on us as defenders of the networks to actually get up to speed on all these different kinds of technologies available and figure out how to use those against the attackers. It's a lot more challenging than it was when I was working on proposal security back in NASA, because we actually had multiple layers of firewalls and all these other kinds of things. And the biggest threat that we have now is just the regular consumer, the regular small business, getting on the internet and having no idea what they're doing. And hopefully they have the onus is on them to basically say, hey, you know what, we really don't know what we're doing. We need to contract with some firm that's actually good at cybersecurity and have them help us get our cybersecurity stuff in order. Because it's really a challenge now. I mean, everything is internet enabled. And so you've got vulnerabilities everywhere. So it's a big challenge.
And what advice can you recommend to the average consumer, to the small businesses who know absolutely nothing about cyber defense or how to protect themselves?
So your basic average consumer, I mean, the first thing is you've got mobile devices, right? So put firewalls on there, put antivirus on there. You can get those usually from your internet service provider for free. As far as the small businesses go, it's the same kind of deal. Your internet service provider will provide you all these things just as a basic, just to get started. Now, if you're doing anything that you really feel like you need to have adequate more protection, then you need to go and contract with a private firm that does security services. And what I'm talking about there is things like where we have a design that we're working on that we don't want anybody, a competitor, to steal, to get to market before we do, or maybe we have a specific customer list that we want to make sure those customers are ours and somebody else doesn't try to take them, and things like that.
Awesome. I want to also get your thoughts, since you were a faculty here at Chattanooga State back in starting at 2016. What were your thoughts on the data breach that occurred here on campus several years ago?
So the data breach that occurred here on campus was just primarily due to a problem that affects a lot of small businesses, and that was just that there was software that wasn't kept up to date. And so when you don't keep your software up to date, you're asking yourself for vulnerabilities. Now, it's really big of a challenge when you look at even places like this radio station here. I'm looking at this equipment and I'm thinking, wow, how old is this equipment, right? Where we teach over in the engineering building, we have a lot of old engineering CNC machines and things like that that have to use older software that's dependent on older operating systems and things like that. And so we have to figure out how to deal with that, because we have basically operating systems we can't patch. And so the correct answer for things like this is what we call network segmentation. You basically just separate out all those things that you can't update, and so that they're off the network.
So basically, in a way, it's kind of like subnetting within the larger network to basically keep out intruders.
That's exactly what it is. It's basically, you might have heard of something called a guest network. It's essentially putting these things on a guest network so they don't have the same access that everything else does. So that if they do get compromised, they can't get out.
What are your thoughts on social engineering attacks, such as phishing, other stuff? We've probably discussed a little bit about Kevin Mitnick. Rest in peace. Some of the social engineering he has done to break into computer systems before his conviction back in '95.
Yeah, the interesting thing about social engineering now is that we have AI, and AI is getting better and better at actually crafting all these social engineering basically attacks. One of the nice things is there used to be this thing called the social engineering toolkit. It's still around, but now AI helps it work even better. And so we really have to be really vigilant. It used to be simple enough for you to go look at an email and say, oh, it's misspelled, it must be wrong. Guess what? AI knows how to spell, and now we can basically craft emails that are very, very convincing. I get some of these emails all the time, and it's just like, wow, except for the fact that I didn't actually ask for this, so you just ignore it. And basically my advice to anybody is, if you get an email that you didn't ask for, basically unsolicited email, delete it. It's probably an attack.
That is very true. I've even used the social engineering toolkit for educational purposes, using it on try-hack-me machines, and it can be really simple to use if you know what you're doing. It's very sophisticated looking, but if you know how to use a terminal, you can easily use the social engineering toolkit to start phishing people, and that is pretty concerning, honestly.
Yeah, that is another thing, is that we used to have what we called script kiddies, and it was a very low bar to entry as far as technological skills required to hack. Now that bar is even lower. Anybody can do it.
That's very true. Um, we've even had like a tool that script kiddies could even use. Are you familiar with the Flipper Zero?
I am familiar with Flipper. I don't have one, but I've heard lots of good things about it.
Yeah, that is true. The Flipper Zero is really useful. In my opinion, that's a tool that I absolutely want on my toolkit. Um, Ethical reasons, of course. I am not going to go out there and hack a Tesla out in the parking lot. I'm going to go on the record and say just that. um, but are there any uses for Flipper Zero that you could even recommend to people who are responsible when using one?
Actually, what I would use it for is I would use it to look at all the different IoT devices that you have sitting around, wherever it is in your corporate environment or even at home, like your thermostat, your refrigerator, your stove, who knows what else, if you've got access points or hot points on them for wireless network, and see if you can get in. Because if you can get in, that means anybody else can get in. And so then you at least have identified a vulnerability. Maybe you can segregate it, put it on a separate subnet, put it on a guest network, put it on something like that.
That's absolutely true. In your experience in cybersecurity and teaching cybersecurity, what 5 tools would you say are your favorite in your toolkit?
So I would have to say the 5 favorite tools are Nmap. Nmap is basically a tool that we use for scanning a network for vulnerabilities. Shodan IO, which is another tool that you can use for actually scanning the internet for open points of access. Simple things. A lot of times you'll hear people say, hey, don't ever use Telnet. Well, what they don't know is that you can use Telnet to get to any port on a machine. And so I can use that to get to a port just to see if there's a service open that might be vulnerable. So even basic things like that. I really wouldn't necessarily say that the command line is a tool, but there's just a whole suite of tools available on it to do all kinds of interesting things. And of course, just to kind of cheat answer to your question, Kali Linux, a distribution of Linux that has a whole suite of tools for doing wireless access sniffing and all kinds of things. So
Yeah, personally, I love Kali Linux a lot. Parrot Linux is a good operating system to have also, but a lot of people use Kali Linux for a wide variety of things related to penetration testing and even the blue team defense tools as well. Tools such as Wireshark, a really good tool for network defense. Tools such as Burp Suite for web application vulnerabilities, and it's a whole plethora of cybersecurity tools that can either be used for good or abused for evil.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools out there. Thanks for mentioning Burp Suite. That's a great web application proxy. There's lots of good tools in that space too.
Now, are there any resources that you can recommend for the script kiddies listening to the broadcast? How you can go about learning cybersecurity in ethical, legal, and educational ways?
So there's actually a number of websites out there that are actually really helpful for learning about what we call ethical hacking, right? We've got HackMe, we've got Hack the Box. We've got a lot of tools that you can go out there and use and just practice your skills. And then there's just ethical hacking in general. I mean, honestly, you can even at this point ask your AI, what is ethical hacking? Why would I want to be an ethical hacker? Reason why is because you can actually get paid a lot of money just doing these kinds of things. One of the highest paying careers in this field is actually what's called threat hunting. And the idea behind it is looking at what threats are out there on the landscape in cybersecurity and what are the tactics, techniques, and procedures that different hacking groups are trying to follow to break into different kinds of systems, and what kind of industries are vulnerable and things like that. So
that is very good information. Another resource I can also recommend would be Bandit War Games, and the War Games, over the wire War Games. website is pretty good for learning Linux command line. You just connect to the server using SSH or multiple ports, and you basically use, well, not multiple ports, but multiple usernames, especially on Bandit, which is like beginner level, entry level Linux. And the difficulty kind of keeps getting higher and higher the more you get passwords for each username. So that's a resource I personally recommend also, in addition to your recommendations. Try Hack Me and Hack the Box. My personal two favorites, honestly. I guess a couple more questions I have for you. What are your thoughts on lockpicking? Have you ever taught lockpicking, locksport, or other forms of physical security?
No, I've never taught anything about physical security. I have a very extensive background, however, in changing locks. So I know all about locks, but I've never actually taught the physical security aspects of locks. Honestly, one thing I would definitely think twice about is getting an electronic lock, because most of those electronic locks can actually be physically picked easier than physical locks. So
That's true. And last question of the interview, and it's kind of a silly question, but have you ever hacked the Gibson?
no, and I don't even know what the Gibson is, actually.
I don't think a lot of people do. I know that's like a huge reference to like Hackers, that movie starring Angelina Jolie. It's my personal favorite hacker movie. There's a lot of humor in it, and a lot of references that a lot of hackers in the industry also make.
One of my personal favorite movies was actually The Net with Sandra Bullock.
Yes.
It's a very interesting thing nowadays because we have a lot of people that only really exist online. And it's like, what happens if I just erase you or replace you?
That is absolutely a fact right there. That movie itself can be pretty relatable for a lot of us, even those of us who are not really ethical hackers at all. So, it's a lot to think about, a lot of paranoia about, threat actors doing horrible things. And that movie is a huge testimony about this kind of stuff. Can't trust just anyone. I mean, I've had an ex that's always said like trust is a weakness. So yeah. So yeah. If anybody is a student here at Chattanooga State Community College that are interested in cybersecurity, I definitely recommend Dr. Patrick Ward's classes. He knows a lot. He's been in the industry. So that's honestly 10 out of 10 here on campus. And do you have any kind of workshops that are on campus that you want to talk about also? I know you've had one last semester talking about cybersecurity, in which we did have like somebody from the government that was going to come speak but could not make it.
Yeah, so every October, just for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we usually have a workshop or a talk or something like that. As the host mentioned, basically we were going to have somebody from TVA come out, but things happen. So hopefully this next year we'll either have TVA or we'll have the DHS come out and talk. As far as other kinds of things go, we still do kind of workshops, but they're sort of more aimed at people coming into the college, so they're sort of for recruitment. Don't really have anything at this time planned other than the usual October thing for the current students. So
Cool. Dr. Patrick Ward, it has been a pleasure interviewing you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
And we're going to get right back to the music. This is WAWL, Chattanooga State's The Wall. I am Harleet Quinn, and you're listening to HonkSec Radio.